Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel for what is the last book haul of 2021 on this channel, obviously, not necessarily on YouTube, but I mean, probably like a lot of you, I'm in disbelief that 2022 is on the horizon. 2022 is an odd year for me because it should be the year I finish my PhD, it's the year I get my mortgage, it's the year I turn 30, and I'm just like excited but also terrified of it coming. So I'm just going to enjoy being in 2021 for this last little part and spend some time showing you the final books I picked up this year. I mean, you know what a book haul is at this point. So yeah, let's pick straight up with the books that I have bought myself recently. So the first one is a pre-order and it's a book that was on my most anticipated releases for this year, which is Girls of Fate and Fury by Natasha Ngan. This is the third book in the Girls of Paper and Fire series, which is a YA fantasy series which has a sapphic romance at the centre between two enslaved women who are forced to be concubines to the king in this fantasy world that is stratified by like three main races. So you have the sort of demons who are like fully, you know, sort of animal form but sentient and like walk on two legs. Then you have those who are sort of a mixture of like human form and animal form, and then you have the lowliest bottom class, which are the like full bred humans, and these concubines are all human women. And of course their love and their relationship slowly helps aid them both in defying this regime. Now all of these books deal quite heavily with sexual violence, and I've read books 1 and book 2 already in the series. Book 1, like I mentioned, is really the one that deals with the sexual violence in depth, but book 2 very much deals with the trauma, and that's one of the things I really appreciate about this series is that yes, it's a fantasy book which involves sexual violence, but it's a book that genuinely explores the trauma that is experienced by those who experience sexual violence, and that is so rare in fantasy. And I think this series is doing absolutely fantastic things. On top of that, I'm very invested in the romance and the political machinations of everything that's going on, so naturally, you know, I was very excited to have book 3. I have both the previous 2 books in hardback, so I really want the series in lovely hardbacks to match. So yeah, looking forward to reading this in the new year. We then have another sequel, which is Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Dahlia Hibbert. So this is book 2 in the 3-book contemporary romance series following the Brown sisters. So in book 1 we follow Chloe Brown in Get a Life Chloe Brown, which is the title of the book, and I read that recently with my boyfriend and absolutely adored it, and we want to continue on with the series together, so we will be reading Take a Hint, Dani Brown in the new year. This is, like I mentioned, about 3 sisters. So in book 1 we follow one sister, and now we're following a second sister, and this is her romance. I don't really know much about it except that she's also a PhD student, which like may both be relatable but also like traumatizing for me. Like I said, I'm in the final stages and really hoping to be done with it very, very soon. But it's really nice to like have a romance novel featuring a grad student. Like that's not something I find often. It's really nice to see the grad student, PhD student, you know, experience represented, and naturally I'm also just expecting like a really fun romance to be a part of that too. I then have 3 bargain books which I picked up in The Works. I actually picked these up a little while ago. The Works is a shop in the UK which amongst other things sells like discounted books. They buy the rights to print books in bulk so they can offer them at discounts, and they usually have kind of best sellers available, and they had 3 for £5, so I decided to pick up 3. Now the reason that I first decided to pick up any was because of this. This is The Lies You Told by Harriet Tice. So I have recently read, or well, it was a couple of months ago now, read Harriet Tice's other thriller novel, which is actually here on the front here. It's called Blood Orange, and thought it was fantastic. So I really wanted to read what else that author had written, basically. I very much picked up on the basis of the author rather than the blurb, so let's read it together. Sadie loves her daughter and will do anything to keep her safe, but she can't tell her why they had to leave home so quickly or why Robin's father won't be coming with them to London. She can't tell her why she hates being back in her dead mother's house with its ivy-covered walls and its poisonous memories. And she can't tell her the truth about the school Robin's set to start at, a school that doesn't welcome newcomers. Sadie just wants to get their lives back on track. But even lies with the best intentions can have deadly consequences. To be honest, I still have no idea what's going on, but like I said, I love the author's other books. I'm excited to read more by her. We then picked up a bit of a random one, which is a Nora Roberts book. This is called Blue Dahlia, and this is book 1 in the Garden trilogy. So from what I understand, this is a series of like romantic mysteries / romantic thrillers. I've never read a Nora Roberts book. She is obviously a very famous author. She's been writing for decades. She has like pumped out, it feels like, 1,000,000 books over the years, and I really just want to see if I'm a Nora Roberts fan or not. Like, with an author that has this much hype and this much love behind her and has been writing for so long, it just seems like I should give her a shot. And I enjoy romance, and I enjoy thrillers, and I enjoy mysteries, so why not? Like I said, this is another one I very much just picked up on the basis of the author. Then lastly, since I had to pick up a third one to get my deal, I went for another thriller. I was very much in a thriller mood this day. I'd been reading a lot of thrillers, and this is, actually I need to peel the sticker off for me to see what it's called. This is The Girl from Widow Hills by Megan Miranda. So this is another author who I've read previously and really enjoyed. I actually can't remember what the book I read by her was called. It was called The Perfect Stranger. It's in the back here. So I thought I'd give another one of her thrillers a try. I very much invest in a thriller author. Once I find that they've written one book I like, I want to read everything, because it suggests to me that they write thrillers and mysteries in a way that I really enjoy. This one is about Arden Maynor, who when she was 6 years old was swept away in a terrifying storm and went missing for days. Against all odds, she was found alive, clinging to a storm drain. Fame followed, and so did fans, creeps and stalkers. As soon as she was old enough, Arden changed her name and left Widow Hills behind. 20 years later, Olivia, as she is now known, is plagued by night terrors. She often finds herself out of bed in the middle of the night, sometimes streets away from her home. Then one evening she jolts awake in her yard, with the corpse of a man at her feet. The girl from Widow Halls is about to become the centre of the story once again. I mean, that is a good blurb. Right now I'm very much in a romance mood though. I pretty much only want to read romance at the moment, so I did pick up another contemporary romance, because contemporary romance is definitely like the subgenre of romance I've read the least of and want to try and find my footing in. I obviously really enjoyed Get Like Chloe Brown recently, so thought this sounded interesting when I spotted it in Rare Birds bookshop, and that's The Lucky Escape by Laura Jane Williams. One cancelled wedding, one unexpected honeymoon. I mean, part of the reason I like romance is the tropes, is the predictability, so like I'm here for all of that. This is about a woman who is left standing at the altar. She is like stood up by her groom and decides to go on her honeymoon by herself. On this honeymoon she ends up bumping into an old friend that, you know, I'm assuming a romantic relationship develops with. So I imagine it's about like kind of like recovering from quite an intense breakup and also finding new love. Then lastly we have one more book that I picked up for myself, and that is Mary Shelley's Transformation. So we all know Mary Shelley as the author of Frankenstein. That is where her fame stems, but I didn't realise for a long time that she'd written anything else. I thought she was one of those authors who had like one really famous book but hadn't had the chance to write anything else before she passed away. I was wrong. She has. In fact, she's written a few things, plays and prose, and this is one I'd never heard of before, but when I spotted it in Lighthouse like a month or so back, I decided to pick it up. And it's about a man who makes a deal with like a demon-like gargoyle creature. I don't know anything else other than that, but I really enjoyed Frankenstein and would like to try more of Mary Shelley's work since I hear a lot less about it. I then have some books that my lovely friend Leanne passed along to me. She was clearing out her bookcases, as was I. We did some swapping and I ended up with some new books on my shelves, even though I was also trying to get rid of books. I mean, I'm not going to complain, and I thought I'd share some with you. So the first one is Untold Night and Day by Bae Sao. This is a South Korean literary novel about a young woman named Ayami whose final shift at her like long-term job has just like taken place, and it's about the events which follow. I'm not really sure what the events are. It sounds quite abstract and like mysterious and maybe a little bit magical realist from the description, but I really enjoy reading South Korean literature. I'm always looking for new authors from South Korea that I might enjoy, so I figured why not give it a try. Then we have a mystery thriller which is The End of Temperance Dare, a novel by Wendy Webb. This is about a woman who was previously a crime reporter but decides, you know, it's time to like take a job which is a little less violent and maybe a little bit less traumatizing, and becomes a director of an artist retreat. I don't know quite how she jumps from one to the other, but she does. And when she arrives at this retreat for her first like session, the first one she's going to lead with a new group of people, it doesn't really go as planned, and it's a lot darker and more sinister than she expected. Naturally, I expect a crime to take place and maybe her crime reporting skills come into play. Don't know much else other than that, but I thought, again, give it a try if Leanne was getting rid of it. Then lastly, we have a bunch of books which I was sent by the publishers, or in fact the first two not actually the publishers but by the Dutch Literature Society. So the Dutch Literature Society is all about promoting Dutch literature which has been translated for people to read outside of the Netherlands. So of course I said yes when they offered to send me some pieces. I have two here, the first one of which is Two Blankets, Three Sheets by Rodin Al Galidi, and I'll simply read you the blurb because that's what sold me. Amsterdam Airport, 1998. Samir Karim steps off a plane from Vietnam, flushes his fake passport down the toilet and requests asylum. Fleeing Iraq to avoid conscription into Saddam Hussein's army, he has spent 7 years anonymously wandering through Asia. Now, safely in the heart of Europe, he is sent to an asylum centre and assigned a bed in a shared dorm. As he navigates his way through the absurdities of Dutch bureaucracy, Samir tries his best to get along with his 500 new housemates. Told with compassion and a unique sense of humour, this is an inspiring tale of survival, a close-up view of the hidden world of refugees and human smugglers, and a sobering reflection of our times. And the author himself did actually seek asylum from Iraq in the Netherlands, and because of his asylum status wasn't able to take formal Dutch lessons and had to teach himself Dutch, which is incredible, and I'm so excited to read this novel. We then have a little pamphlet collection of poetry by Simone Atagana Bekono, and I should say actually translated by David Colmer, and the previous novel I mentioned is translated by Jonathan Reeder. So I mean, we all know what poetry is, it's pretty self-explanatory, and I think it's really interesting reading poetry in translation because obviously poetry is a form of literature that even more than prose really relies on the meaning of every single word. So it seems to me such an impressive skill to be able to translate the meaning and rhythm and impact of a poem into another language. So I'm always interested in reading more translated poetry. Then we have some proofs. So because this is the end of the year, I have started to build up a little pile of proofs of books that are coming out in 2022 that I am very excited to read. So first up is one that was actually on my most anticipated releases of 2022 list, and that's Electra by Jennifer Saint. So this is naturally a retelling of the Greek myth of Electra, who is the daughter of Clytemnestra and Agamemnon, as well as the sister of Orestes. And I have never read a Greek myth retelling of Electra's story, so I think this is going to be really interesting, and Jennifer Saint has already made her mark on this genre with her book Ariadne, so can't wait to see what she does in this one. Then we have a fantasy novel which has the most beautiful proof. This is not the final copy, but I imagine it will be something similar because this is stunning, and that's The Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May, which comes out on the 31st of March. This one I believe is set in a early 1900s setting. It says it has some great Gatsby vibes in there, but blended with practical magic. It's about a woman who goes on a summer getaway to Crow Island where she discovers her neighbour is a witch. We then have a proof of the sci-fi novel Bluebird, which was sent to me by Angry Robot and comes out on February the 8th, so not very long to wait at all. And I just love the back of this proof because it literally just has 4 words, and they summarise exactly why I want to read it, because it reads lesbian gunslingers in space. I mean, I'm hoping for Firefly vibes but full of lesbians, which sounds like Firefly kicked up and improved by 10, and I'm so excited. We then have one last proof which was sent to me by Canongate. It's not called No Matter Their Age, the female of the species is always more deadly than the male. That's quite a long title. It's actually called The Old Woman with the Knife, which is a brilliant title. And there is just a quote here on the back which reads, "If a client looked to her that way just a decade ago, Hornclaw would have instantly drawn a knife and whirled it around as if it were an extension of her body. Showing off her skills, she would have done that even if it wasn't her client. But as time passed, her own reactions felt futile. She remembered how she used to be treated sceptically when she was younger, just because she was a woman. Now her age is just another reason for people to dismiss her on sight." So it sounds like we have a deadly older woman at hand here. This is another one that comes out in March, although on the 3rd of March. And it's about a 65-year-old female contract killer who is considering retirement. So those are all the books that have recently made their way onto my shelves, minus 2 which were in a collab book haul that I filmed with Leanne and Tasman recently. I'll link that down below if you're interested. We showed you the books that we all bought when we were together over the weekend a few weeks ago. But there you have it, the last book haul of 2021, although it's very possible that I may receive some books for Christmas, so be prepared for a new book haul in January. But yeah, until next time, let me know if you are interested in any of the books I've mentioned in this video. Happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye everyone!